This video is sponsored in part by my supporters. For more exclusive videos every month, check out the links down below. The star map in Star Citizen is an awful experience. It is known. The Star Citizen experience is hampered by a lot of placeholder functions, features, and activities. As the company has continued to try and build the game engine that would make more developed features possible, we've been stuck with this. But it might actually be getting better soon. So let's talk about the worst feature in the game. That's the star map, if you didn't catch it. Why it and navigation in general are the way they are, and what we can expect from the future of mapping and navigation in Star Citizen. And for a chance to win a copy of the game when this channel hits 50,000 subscribers, stick around until the end. And to my supporters who sponsored these videos, thank you for supporting my tomato talks. The star map we use in-game was introduced to us back in Alpha 3.0 in 2018. To put into perspective how different the game was back then, strip away every planet but Crusader, then take Crusader and make it just a static backdrop. Take away many of the moon outposts, all the caves, all the bunkers, most derelicts, remove most weapons, most AI interaction, the ability to send money, no buying ships, no renting ships, no scanning, no mining, and then add in a 30 frame per second ceiling, 5 times the amount of glitches, and a development that really didn't feel like it had much direction. The game was so bare that any earlier than 3.0 and you could only navigate by pointing and going. That's how few places there were to go in the game. This was the environment in which the current star map was introduced. 3.0 was the barest experience of what Star Citizen was meant to become. It was still very much a tech demo, and most of the systems from that period have been phased out over time. But not this guy. The map we have now begrudgingly sticks around, interrupting virtually every player's experience virtually every day of play, making it one of the most visible, regular, and confusing issues in the game. It has some serious problems with rendering moons, planets, asteroid belts, and anything else if you move in the wrong direction. Oftentimes, it will inexplicably refuse to set your route or zoom into the location you're looking at. All of the icons stack on top of each other, and it does not adjust to scale to make planetary locations easier to select. But those are mainly problems with the app itself. Design-wise, it only gets worse. The graphics themselves are much lower quality than the game generally aims for. The controls are not very intuitive or user-friendly, and there's no legend to explain them or even the icons you're looking at. There's no search function, and of course, like most holographic UI in the game, it can be almost impossible to see the map at sometimes. And the biggest problem, the one that will likely be the biggest difference in the new version that has been spoken about several times over the years, and that will improve this game exponentially, is the inability to zoom in with the star map to get an idea of your local surroundings. But the new map that would fix these problems and improve the player experience never showed up. There was no telling how long we'd be stuck with the 3.0 version, and I doubt anybody back at that time thought it would be this long. But here we are, 6 years later. 4.0 is coming up and likely gonna be both a good time symbolically and developmentally to make the change to the star map. But why on Pico's white microtech did players have to wait this long? Back in 2018, we were introduced to the UI building tool known as building blocks.
The other aspect we've been working on that we term building blocks, and that's basically a first foray into the authoring tool that allows artists and designers to easily place UI elements into the game world.
What building blocks is meant to do is alleviate the UI team from making the specific UI for every application in the game. What would end up happening is the UI team would need to stop a large part of the general UI development in order to create a static UI for each use case. Not only that, the UI were all being built on the outdated Flash platform. Building blocks was the in-house tool that needed to be built by the company to supply UI to the rest of the game engine, rather than using the outdated tools that came with the CryEngine when it was starting to be used. And don't take my word from it, just from this clip you can tell how happy the UI team is to have that load taken off their shoulders.
Unless we just magic out of thin air another 20 UI guys, it's just not going to grow. It just turns into this great big bottleneck. So that is why around 2017, I think it was, we did change the mechanism that we wanted to develop the UI and go wide and like spread it across a lot of these teams, so we can I want to say put the onus back on them, because it's also like when any trouble comes in, it's not just developing it. It's like at release time, inevitably there's a few problems with any given feature. But if you had 10 features and each of them have a few UI bugs in them, and they all have to be done by one UI team, it becomes a real bottleneck. So it's really good to go wide across the company, and each of those guys then get the ownership of their particular feature from start to finish, and not just go, it's done, just needs UI. We're just waiting on UI guys. It's like, you are the UI guys now, right?
Right.
So with this building blocks tool alleviating that constant pressure from the UI team to create every layout in the game, designers that worked on other game features started to gain the ability to work on UI not only in the real-time game engine, but also in a manner that made sense to them. And as it was being built, this tool was referred to often, with multiple showcases of the advancements being made behind the scenes. It was interesting to hear from both the UI team working on the tool and the designers who wanted it.
I should add actually that like the building block stuff is going to change missions massively. It's changing them now.
It's actually possible to do things in a not deprecated system, and like okay, And so now that that's rolling online, the features are starting to come.
And as more building blocks features come online, you'll see these new UIs improve in terms of functionality as we just get more and more tools.
That's been the benefit of the building blocks.
Throughout 2018, 2019, and 2020, we saw regular updates on the feature, and as existing screens in the game began to get updated in 2020, we started to hear about 3D support being coded in. Then, in the monthly reports, mentions of a new star map began to pop up. This was mostly coding and programming support surrounding not just the new star map, but the radar, interior, and minimap interfaces. Of course, in classic fashion, saying they'd be seen in several months in the game, which was not true. Also, shout out to the Gen 12 renderer kicking around back then, added in 3.18 recently. So it became pretty clear this star map, like many of the other UI we've seen come into the game since building blocks started to be adopted, was going to have to wait for the new system to be coded and designed for a while. But ultimately, it was the feature set and inability of the UI team to focus on this singular major initiative that seemingly made it take so long to build. And the integration of so many pieces of information, from beacons to locations, to local radar, to planetary orbits, even to space clouds being rendered in the map, all using the world display system to inform you, was all going to take a pretty robust system. So the team has spent the last year and a half building what they spent all those previous years theorizing and designing. And I've spent hours researching each monthly report from that period to give you an idea of what we might expect for the future of the star map.
So the interesting thing about the star map and where we want to take it in the future is that the star map will actually be the same display tech being used for the radar. And you can sort of think the star map as sort of like a Google Maps of the star system universe. It's basically, we eventually want to make it whereby you can zoom in far enough and it basically turns into a radar in a ship, or your surroundings, like who's around me if I'm in first person.
From as far back as I know, the idea of an all-encompassing map has been the main goal for all parties involved. If you jump forward 4 years to 2021 when that design was taking place, you'll hear the exact same thing.
It's a really big system that kind of combines the radar, the star map, potentially some of the AR markers, and also the interior map. We think really that should be one thing, essentially. So like Chris Roberts has always had this idea that he wants to be able to start from the radar and zoom out from that, and you can see the star map, and you can zoom out and see the galactic view, essentially. So we've been writing around that idea.
So I think it's safe to say we'll see this combination of services all packaged into a single app, as we can see on the progress tracker that the map, radar, and HUD features are wrapping up on work, and we know that FPS radar and ping, as well as the player interaction systems, will likely be linked and are working and being tested in the single-player Squadron 42 environment. In addition, we've also seen some pretty old pre-visualization models of what the interior or local map is meant to look like, and more recently, a more finalized and polished version. This technology will drive most of our interactions on the ground, assisted by a possible mini-map, which I've really only ever seen one sign of. So we'll be supplied a full-screen, full system-wide view down to the nearest outpost. The map will feature a full 3D interface displaying 3D models of nearby characters, vehicles, and ships, as well as gas cloud volumes. They'll also be incorporating the three-dimensional text tools we've been seeing demoed recently, as well as AR markers that I'm really hoping we can place for ourselves, which would give a huge kickstart to the exploration profession. The map is also being enabled as a holo volume, which will be replacing the holographic radar you can find in your ship, as well as full interactive experiences on capital ships with decks, tables, and holo globes. Of course, some form of information panel is also planned, though I don't know about the initial implementation. Being able to see things like economic factors, population density, and danger levels will be invaluable. And I hope that there'll be bits of information that you can gain through other means and plug into your star map, as this has been mentioned as a desire by the devs, but not necessarily confirmed. Also, a search function will be included with this new star map, so it's much easier to find your destinations. Ultimately, the map is taking inspiration from the Arc star map on the website, which I'll leave linked down below, but it will be going for a more sci-fi movie feel. And from various explanations and the details we see in the monthly reports, it does sound like it will be a pleasure to look at. Obviously, the most important thing, though, is will it be nice to use? And I think it will be. Looking at all of the UI we've gotten after building blocks was implemented, they may not be the most intuitive, but they are responsive and never seem to suffer issues outside of server problems. As long as I can search, reliably select locations, and get the necessary info, I'll be happy. And I guess since they are so excited about the scaling feature, we'll take that too.
The original design was that that radar that you would see would also scale up, or you would scale out basically.
Radar, as we call it, is essentially, it encapsulates the star map, it encapsulates what's in your cockpit, and it also encapsulates when you're in FPS, you have an FPS radar and scanner.
Star map's really star map and radar, because you can zoom in and zoom out, and you can zoom all the way to the radar level or zoom all the way out to the star map.
This new mapping system is coming along at a time when we're also looking at new travel methods, new quantum travel, updated HUDs and visors, the interaction system, FPS scanning, and improved MFDs. There are a lot of UI, traversal, and interaction-based features on the horizon that might show up sometime between now and, well, who knows when. I do think we'll see some of these features in the next year, but I don't know when each separately might be. But if you enjoy Star Citizen, want more content, and want to keep up with this kind of stuff, you can subscribe here and to my second channel for weekly feature deep dives, gameplay, podcasts, or new videos. And if you like this video's style, which goes more in depth with the history of development, I make a new one every month for my supporters. For this, behind the scenes content, and more, consider joining on Patreon or YouTube down below. And before you go, this channel is about to hit 50,000 subscribers. We want to say thanks and throw another giveaway to gift out 2 copies of the game with one of 2 Drake ships, the Cutlass or the Cutter, supplied by CIG. All you have to do to enter is subscribe and hit the link below for additional options. On top of that, as always, I'll be hiding extra codes throughout my videos that can give you more points towards the giveaway. There will be 2 winners, and they'll be announced the day after we hit 50K. Whether you enter or not, I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.